Sometimes things fall in water, and sometimes that water freezes. Due to the nature of how freezing works, sometimes things can remain trapped in ice for a terrifyingly long time. Just look at poor Fry from Futurama. Sometimes artifacts, creatures, and even people can wind up trapped in ice for long periods of time and blow our minds when we find them. These are the most surprising things found frozen in ice in Antarctica. Before we begin, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos every day. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. A giant trench and hot rocks. Call it a subglacial trough or call it an unsung wonder of the world. The Bentley Subglacial Trench is one of the lowest points on the Earth's surface. This enormous rift is bigger than the Grand Canyon. It's also the lowest place on Earth not covered by an ocean, with a depth of over 2,500 meters or 8,300 feet below sea level. It's named for Charles R. Bentley, an American professor of geophysics who was in charge of the expeditions leading up to this shocking discovery. Bentley's teams went out to explore West Antarctica between 1957 and 1959, a time when most of America was caught up in the space race. At great peril, Bentley and his team were exploring Marie Byrd Land, a region in West Antarctica. They discovered a system of valleys named the West Antarctic Rift System and used instruments of their time to measure and map it. Science never lost interest in this vast icy time capsule. Today we have much more sophisticated instruments for gathering more info, and there have been recent breakthroughs. Seismometers used to measure earthquakes and other vibrations deep in the earth were set up in Marie Byrd Land in 2009. Designing, building and setting up scientific instruments that were up to the harsh winter conditions took years of work. Measuring the activity deep beneath the rift system and studying changes over time proved that there is superheated rock deep below. Scientists are still studying patterns in the heat flow and are always learning more about our crazy planet. The findings suggest there used to be active volcanoes under that rock and that the heat created crystalline rock formations up through the Jurassic period. Sites on the surface near the coast used to be lake beds. We can tell because there are signs of water vegetation and of course all the fossilized fish skeletons. There is one footnote about the lowest place factoid. It is the lowest place on Earth not covered by ocean. However, it is incorrect to say not covered by water, since it's covered by ice, which is frozen water. Now it's time for the odd topic. This photo was sent to us by a subscriber to our channel who says that they spotted it in, of all places, a National Geographic documentary. The subscriber, who's chosen to remain anonymous, said they were watching a documentary about Antarctica that opened with a fast-paced montage of shots of the ice, and during the montage, an image shot by Quick that captured the anonymous subscriber's attention. He or she rewound and paused and spotted this image. It lasts for less than a second, but as you can see, it seems to show a crashed UFO buried in the ice. Did the documentary makers know it was there? Does anyone know it's there, or are we the first to spot it? Comment down below with the hashtag #OddTopic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 4. A shock at the South Pole. Over a century ago, humans reached the absolute southernmost point of the globe, the South Pole. It's a remarkable feat for the first party to get there. A British Royal Navy officer named Captain Robert Falcon Scott made 2 historic treks out to Antarctica. The first trip was the Discovery Expedition, which began an era of science known as the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, a joint effort among biologists, geologists, zoologists, meteorologists, and archaeologists. Starting out in 1901 with a small team, Scott set off for Antarctica by boat, with a team of military personnel, scientists, and 25 sled dogs acquired through a renowned trainer. They didn't invite the trainer. The Discovery Expedition set a record, reaching to latitude 82 degrees south, was the furthest to date. Scott also discovered the Antarctic Plateau, the hilly platform that is home to the South Pole. Scott set out again for the South Pole on the Terra Nova expedition with a team of 4 other explorers. Terra Nova meaning, cleverly enough, new land. Scott's party reached the South Pole and made an amazing discovery. They were 5 weeks late. They arrived at their destination to find a marker stating a Norwegian team led by Roald Amundsen made it there only 35 days earlier. News traveled much slower back then, especially if you were thousands of miles from civilization. Plus, Amundsen was careful not to let other explorers catch wind of his plans to go first after the South Pole, when his colleagues believed he was heading for the North Pole. Roald Amundsen told only his brother and the captain of his ship that he planned to find the South Pole first in order to win grant funding for the North Pole expedition. After fighting the terrain, having quarrels and miscommunications muck up the logistics, and even slaughtering their best ponies for meat, Britain would not be the first to the South Pole. The trek back proved fatal and all 5 party members died. They were only 12 miles from the next outpost when the 5 men died from exposure. History called Captain Scott a tragic hero for years, but modern scholars have been looking more critically at trip records. After comparing diaries and letters home to more black and white documents like supply lists, team correspondence, and travel plans reveal there were some shortcomings with skills, with preparation, and with getting along. Modern historians who study this tragedy consider Captain Scott and his team somewhat culpable for the mistakes that led to their failed attempt to get there first and their deaths. Number 3. Plant fossils. The next artifact results from Captain Robert Falcon Scott's fatal journey. The team was discovered with fossils from the South Pole. Today's paleoclimatologists could not do the work they do without these artifacts. It's worth noting that these fossils were found by a military party, not a team of paleontologists. The field didn't exist until fossils were discovered naturally. 100 years ago, scientists could physically examine the fossils to piece together how the world developed before humans took interest. Humans definitely took interest in fossils. Photos and news about these findings excited the world about Earth science, and publishing photos helped scientists to find support from universities, charitable endowments, and support from private benefactors. Scholars in this new field could map where fossils were discovered, measure and categorize the impressions, and publish findings to share with other researchers. Mineralized impressions from the Glossopteris tree, which is a lot like the beech trees we have today, proved a theory about the early shape of the Earth's land. One theory is that there was a supercontinent over millions of years that broke apart and shifted. These theories were controversial as they contradict previous beliefs. Finding these plant fossils paved the way for the eventual discovery of animal life, the dinosaurs. Number 2. Dinosaurs. We now know that dinosaurs once lived on every continent. This is partly because all of the continents used to be linked together, and wildlife traveled all across Pangaea before it split up, back in the age of dinosaurs. Back in the 1980s, 2 geologists from Argentina were exploring James Ross Island looking for fossils of sharks or mollusks. They didn't imagine they would find a jawbone from the first ever dinosaur discovered so far south. The discoveries keep coming. As recently as 2016, archaeologists like Dr. Steve Salisbury from the University of Queensland, Australia, have gone in search of new specimens and been lucky enough to find something. If you ask someone who's been there, working in Antarctica is almost as hard as getting there. These expeditions are dangerous, pitting explorers against volatile winds, rocky sailing conditions, and incredible vulnerability to equipment failures. Getting snowed into small quarters for days at a time is a reality of life there. Plus, this kind of large-scale exploration is expensive. Missions like this one usually get funding from multiple universities, government agencies, and sometimes by private foundations too. Considering how competitive science can be and how slow bureaucracy moves, getting private and public programs to work together is a miracle in itself. Dr. Salisbury celebrates scientific discovery and is glad that their discoveries can inspire future scientists around the world. He invites you to keep up with their discoveries and findings by following their Twitter at Antarctic Dinos. Number 1. Life. Do you love shrimp? Imagine how these scientists felt when they found tiny shrimp living under the ice in Antarctica. NASA made a discovery within the last decade that delighted the scientific community. Shrimp-like creatures called the Lycaenacid amphipod were discovered in 2009 beneath the Ross Ice Shelf. During a regular mission, they were studying the character of the ice shelf and didn't expect to find life. Using a sophisticated borehole camera lowered in the ice, operators were viewing depths early explorers could have never photographed. They were surprised to see the orangey-pink creatures swimming. The Lycaenacids were living over 600 feet under the ice. These creatures can grow to around 3 inches long, the same size as a large cocktail shrimp. There's a location called Windlass Bight, 20 miles away from the McMurdo station. The area, despite being too harsh for unprepared humans, can sustain life. The sea life, native to Antarctica, has adapted to living under the ice. There's ocean water flowing under the ice, and the movement brings in minerals and microbes to sustain the local native sea creatures. Science Under the Ice is a project that seeks to understand how ocean life thrives in the harsh conditions. Hopefully, this team can take knowledge about how sea creatures adapt and put it to some use for the good of medicine, infrastructure, or preservation. Let's not forget the small outposts of humans who've come to explore and stayed. There are no native humans in Antarctica, not in a traditional sense. When the land masses shifted thousands and thousands of years ago, no land masses connected inhabited places close enough. Humans lacked the means and the interest to go so far down south until relatively recently in our species' short existence. But there are civilizations small towns thrive in today. There aren't any recorded permanent residents of Antarctica, but there are almost 70 scientific bases on the continent. There's a small Chilean outpost called Las Estrellas, the stars in Spanish. Its 80 to 100 residents work together to brace the elements and have a small society with as many of the comforts of civilization they can. There's also the Argentinian Esperanza base with 55 winter residents. If you manage to visit either, you might be surprised to find a shop, a bank, and even a school. People go there for two reasons: to work on scientific research and for sightseeing. There is a summer on Antarctica, spanning from early November to late March, and that's when most humans go there to work and or play. The other seasons don't really exist, they're all lumped together as winter. Only a couple dozen of the facilities stay open and inhabited year-round. Vacationing on an Arctic scientific base isn't for the casual traveler. The trip is long and grueling. You have to go through your local government to gain access via the Antarctic Treaty, and they've developed strict requirements. You have to prove you have the means and physical ability to realize your trip. If you plan to go to work as a scientist, you must have a solid job offer, and tourists must convince the authorities you have little or no environmental impact. There's no such thing as a quick trip there. Planned trips last for months, usually planned for 1 or 2 summers. It's common for circumstances to stick people there for enforced winter, a much longer stay than planned. If you could take a team of experts anywhere, where on Earth or space would you want to go explore? What would you hope to find? Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen now. See you next time.